savage, hateful message, isn't it? It's now not relating just to the cop. It's his family as well.
Yes, it's saying that, I know your family's grieving, but what about the families of the youth that have been killed out there? This record is so far-fetched from Australia or New Zealand. It's like you guys are very fortunate. You don't undergo the police brutality the same way we do in America. But where American people are really up in arms about this song, which doesn't kill, it's just a song, but the cops are in America actually kill kids.
There are a small number of people in this world that I genuinely see as the man. Michael Ironside, Glenn Danzig, Blackie Lawless, just to name a few. And 1994's action survival horror film stars one of the biggest ones, Ice Goddamn T. Dude deserves immense credit, not only as a truly successful musician turned actor, but let's talk about his music for a second. That first Body Count album is still next level. Before dickheads like Fred Durst were even looking at their nuts to spot any peach fuzz, Ice-T was showing how the fusion of heavy metal and rap ought to be fucking done. The early 90s were so exciting. The soundtrack for 1993's Judgment Night, which includes the likes of Ice-T and Slayer and Faith No More and Booyah Tribe, was one of the first examples of this style of fusion really working, and Ice-T's music career in general is a perfect example of it. Ice-T to me has always had a legit vibe of badass, so it's no surprise to me that you buy him so easily as one in Surviving the Game. A film borrowing heavily from The Most Dangerous Game. Ice-T plays a homeless guy that just goes from day to day, just trying to stay alive. He starts getting to the end of his rope and starts thinking about suicide. It's around here that opportunity just so happens to knock. An amazing job offer, tons of money for a physically fit applicant. See the country, eat awesome food, hang out with Gary Busey, make sure your cardio is on point. What the fuck could go wrong here? Well, a lot, obviously. I mean, I already said that this was a survival horror film. He's not gonna go gallivant in a field of daisies, eat some piggy, and go home rich.
But this shit ain't funny. Shut the fuck up and put that shit on!
T is given quite the rude awakening, given a time limit to run as fast and as far as he can, before these corporate world American psychos start chasing him and hunting him for sport. No joke though, you could totally see Patrick Bateman being involved with these guys. I've always had a soft spot for this movie. Used to air on TV a lot and I always found myself watching it. I always had a thing for horror movies, and even as a younger fella I could see that this wasn't just an action survival flick. This has tons of horror elements. This sequence, for instance, where our hero decides to double back to the cabin to see if he can find anything to defend himself with, and just comes across this. Like, these freak show motherfuckers keep the heads of their prey in jars, and it's a damn disturbing visual if you ask me. Certainly gave me the willies back in the day. A scene in particular that really stayed with me is when T manages to take out the son of F. Murray Abraham's character. They have to get across a downed tree with deadly rocks below, and T scores big with a kill, but it also happens to be on a character that had been questioning his father's actions, and the longer he was there, the more he wanted to leave. You get a sense of genuine vertigo when the kid falls, and also just something about the way he screams, and then cutting away to his father's reaction of just pure anguish before we actually see the impact. I don't know, man. Something about that always gave me chills. And of course, I can't leave out Gary Busey's insane monologue in this. It's a little bit lengthy, but at the same time, it's the Buse Man. You know you want to watch this shit.
But I don't know shit about you.
Well, ask me something. Ask me anything you want.
All right. How'd you get that fucked up scar up under your eye?
I refer to that as my birthmark. On my 8th birthday, my father brought me a bulldog. A fat little bulldog. I named him Prince Henry Stout. He was strong. He would chase my pet turkey. He would chase squirrels up the tree. I trained him. I raised him. I fed him. I groomed him. I took care of him. I love that dog. I love that dog. More than anything in the world, I love that dog. My father gave me a handful of cherry bombs and M80s and said, you're going to train this dog to be a protector. So every Saturday afternoon, I got behind a little dummy my dad built, and I'd toss these cherry bombs and M80s at the dog. Boom, boom! That dog was scared at first, but after a while, he got angry and he would come at the dummy. Wow! He'd get the dummy and rip it apart. Head was off, shirt was gone. So, 13 years old, birthday time, got me a 12-gauge shotgun. We're going hunting. I was so excited. We went out in the clearing in the woods. My dad laid his gun down, took my gun and laid it down and said, son, today you're going to learn to control your emotions. You're going to do things that some men are unable and unwilling to do. Follow me. I followed my dad. We went around a clump of trees. There's a little corral built. There's Prince Henry Stout chained in the middle of the corral. My dad took out a pocket full of cherry bombs and put them in my hand and said, get in the corral. Here's a lighter. I want you to light those cherry bombs and throw them at the prince. You're gonna face manhood. You're gonna fight that dog to the death. He's gonna kill you, or you're gonna kill him. Now! Boom! Ah! He was on me. He was on me like flies on shit. Had no chance. I got my arm up between his teeth and my neck. Whomp, went down in the mud, rolled over. That dog is fighting and biting and scratching and kicking, and I'm screaming and crying. I'm grabbing him around the head. I stand up, fall with my weight on him. Here's his neck break. He's dead. He's not breathing. He's not yelping. He's not biting. I'm covered with blood. I stand up. I wipe the blood off. I lick it. My dad says, welcome to manhood. That's why this is a birthmark.
Perhaps some of the Busey's finest acting. That shit is genuinely fucking creepy. And I gotta give credit where the boot fits, man. Ice-T has a hell of a monologue in this flick, too. It's where we find out who he was before he became suicidal and homeless. He has John C. McGinley's character captured and decides to tell him what struggle is all about.
I was a mechanic, right? I used to work like a fucking dog, night and day. I had a wife, and I had a newborn kid. We lived in a fucked up part of town. That's where poor people live. I was like the manager of this building. That's the only way I could stay there for free. Had to work around the place, you know what I'm saying? The place should have been fucking condemned. I used to go to the city all the time and told them they had to get shit together. The place wasn't safe. They didn't give a fuck. They don't give a fuck about people who live in the ghetto. I told my girl I was gonna get around to it, you know? The place was a fire trap. So one day I come home late and I see this commotion out in the street. And I'm looking and I notice this ain't where I live, but at the same time, it was my building. But I'm saying it's not my building. But it was. I ran inside. By the time I got in there, my wife and kids was dead. I couldn't. I kept putting off fixing that place, man. I just kept putting it off.
You said that you killed him.
They're dead, ain't they?
This fucking movie, man. The cast alone makes this flick worth a watch. Besides all the other great names I've already mentioned, veteran stage and screen actor Jeff Corey, the great Charles S. Dutton, and fucking Rutger Hauer. Hauer plays the sadistic leader of this clan of corporate world rich homeless hunting assholes, and he plays it with a level of natural coldness that I feel like only really he could pull off.
I say cherish the moment for what it is. Observe your food. Smell it. Touch it. Put your mind into it. And then when you're finally ready, consume it slowly.
Surviving the Game was directed by Ernest Dickinson, who has something like 70 directing credits to his name, one of which is the awesome and totally underrated Tales from the Crypt, Demon Knight. Gee, I do wonder what I'll be covering next. In my last video, I mentioned that there seemed to be a growing trend for these sorts of films in the early 1990s. In 93, we got Hard Target, the beautiful mullet Van Damme flick that put John Woo on the American action map, which actually has quite the similar plot to 94's Surviving the Game. Without question, though, Hard Target is obviously more of the traditional action film of the two, everything from the slick fight choreography to the hero getting the girl in the end. Surviving the Game, on the other hand, is dark. It feels rough, almost has elements of First Blood at times if it were more like the David Morrell novel. My one and only gripe, though, and it is just one, Gary Busey is killed almost immediately. And bear in mind, there's a lot of stuff that happens to Ice-T's character before he even so much as crosses paths with the character of Rutger Hauer, so we really do barely actually spend a lot of time with Gary Busey. So yes, it is pretty much almost right away. According to the writer of the film, it was originally planned for Gary to die when the son of F. Murray Abraham's character's son dies. It was supposed to be swapped out, or something to that effect. But I believe the decision had been made that the son dying later on would add more genuine rage and anguish to the father, and honestly, I can see that. Like, in all fairness, as much as I love the Buse, the way that this movie actually came together, I think works perfectly. And if you were to have actually swapped that out, I don't think that scene would have the same impact that it does in the finished film. My neighbors are scraping metal against concrete. My neighbors are literally scraping metal against concrete. I don't know if any of it's actually going to show up in this video, but if it does, hey, that's what you're fucking hearing. That's what that noise is while I'm trying to goddamn record. Thanks.